Hey guys, Adam Trigger here, wagertalk.com. Championship week rolls on, and I couldn't do a bunch of conference previews without, of course, doing the MAAC, the MAAC. As a Siena college graduate, this is a conference that I follow closely, and I've got to have a preview for this one. And I am bringing in my friend Justin Perry from Shot Quality Bets. He's another MAAC guy, another New Yorker. So, Justin, welcome in. Tell the people about shot quality a little bit. I think all the Wager Talk handicappers use it in some capacity. And yeah, welcome aboard. I'm looking forward to breaking down some MAC basketball with you.
Adam, thank you so much for having me on the show. Really excited to talk about Championship Week, especially the Metro Atlantic. Yeah, here based in New York myself. So this conference really in my backyard, and then doing my stuff with shot quality has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate the shout out to the company. We've been grinding out for the last few years here. Love hearing that the handicappers on your team are using the data. It really is second to none in terms of expected data in college basketball, NBA, WNBA, and NCAA women's. We got it all right now. So we use location data, right? So ingested from video feeds to understand the way positions are made on the court. So player positioning, defender closeout position, speed, height, all of that goes into extra factors on top of just where a shot was taken and an advanced understanding of how good each player is at certain shot types, out of certain types of action, to really generate a true expectation of what a shot is truly worth, whether or not it really goes in. And I like to, say shot quality stops looking at the shot once it leaves the hand, in a sense. And that's not entirely true, because makes and misses over time go into our evaluation of players' success in the future. But, on a specific shot, when we're grading it, we really care about how open it is, how far defenders are away, what type of motion did it come out of, how good a defense is at defending that, the players around them. And it really allows us to create, honestly, entire scores of games that we have a shot quality score of every game. Live games now becoming a huge part of our repertoire. I do a big live betting show 3 times a week. It's been a really fun time using the live regression data, just hammering every single play on the board for about 45 minutes, 3 times a week. Having a good time, and honestly been hitting around 59, 60%, just coming off another really nice 17 and 11 2-hour mega stream, including a 550 Tulsa moneyline comeback win on Saturday. So yeah, we have a good time with it. And shot quality, I truly believe, is the future. Was a fan before I even was the content lead, and now get to talk about it and spread the good word.
It's awesome. I've been using it for a couple of years. I know guys like Dave Koch and Brian Leonard sort of reference it on our shows quite a bit. I jokingly tweeted yesterday when Lehigh was down 21, this has to be a shot quality play. Sure enough, they came back and won. But no, the live shows, if you get a chance to check out one of the live streams and you're into live betting, you shouldn't be live betting without this. That's for sure. At this point, it's tremendous stuff. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about. Listen, if you can even have anything that's somewhat predictive of this conference, like, good luck, because the MAC is probably one of the most unpredictable leagues. Especially when we get to the tournament. Like, I think Marist was the worst seed in the tournament last year, ended up in the final. All sorts of crazy stuff seems to happen in the MAC, and we're going to try to figure out if that's going to happen this year. So we're going to go right through it. We'll start on Tuesday. These are Tuesday, March 12th games, the first round of the MAC tournament. And the tournament kicks off with the 8-9 matchup, Mount St. Mary's, Canisius. Justin, these two teams always seem to deliver a tight game, or a competitive game, if you will. You go back to 2 years ago, I think both games were decided by 1 point. These two teams split the regular season meetings. Both were tight games, I believe, both 5-point finals. And now they'll play in the 8-9 game. But man, Canisius, I don't know how much more that this team can lose and not experience a drop off. Of course, coming before the season even started, they're without Xavier Long, Joe Jones. I don't think either of them ever stepped on the court. Taj Tavesky was going to be one of the players of the year, potential MAC player of the year, or certainly a guy that would be in the mix. He played 2 games. More recently, they lost TJ Gadsden for the year, and Siem Utenjal, who kind of emerged as their best player, has been on and off, in and out of the lineup. I know he's been battling some symptoms of a concussion. He was held out the most recent game. So man, Canisius has lost a lot. When you talk to me in the context of shot quality, you look at the shot quality numbers, but then you have to start subtracting like what these guys each bring to the table to the game, right? Like Utenjal has been one of their top players that, over the course of the year. Mount St. Mary's an interesting stat I found. 2-point field goal percentage, 54%. It's number one in the MAAC. The Mount certainly seems like they're coming in better than Canisius here, but these two teams always play a close game. So how are you seeing this one?
I think here it feels like it's Mount St. Mary's for me in terms of how these teams are playing right now. I just Canisius has gone very downhill for me. Only a few good games recently. Iona win, Niagara win, and the win against Mount St. Mary's was actually one of their best recent games. A couple of these other games, you're not really gonna ever look great beating Siena and Manhattan without an extra little 10-point cushion there, given how those teams have looked this season. But yeah, you said it at the top. This conference is very, very unpredictable. I think the shot quality data jumps off the page in that sense. I mean, you have some very, very lucky teams, some very unlucky teams. Siena, even though they are four wins this season right now, shot quality did expect them to do better based on the shots they take. And there's a lot you can sort of extrapolate from that, right? As you sort of get more and more fluent in what shot quality means. I guess you can kind of look at an underperformance, a sustained underperformance, as maybe indicative of just the truth. Siena's underperforming this season. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Not even just on a game by game basis, but just entirely the players are not playing up to the potential. The shots they're getting, aren't worth what you might calculate based off of league-wide averages. That's been the problem. They, and Vegas is seeing it too. Like the efficiency, they're losing a lot of spreads. We have the ability to look at that quickly and to see it's a lot of red in terms of our recap of the season. I just look, when you talk about this Canisius team, they're definitely going the wrong direction. The Mount has kind of played a couple good games. They definitely that good home win against Iona, but this one's truly going to come down to probably who gets lucky. I don't think that's far-fetched in a conference like this. It's like who's going to get the hot shooting night probably advances. I don't know if there's much about the tendencies here. Mount St. Mary's is actually a very efficient three-point shooting team, but they don't get to the line. They turn the ball over too much. They don't run in transition well. They don't even take enough three-pointers for that efficiency to really come out and roar. And then you're playing Canisius, who, like you said, very depleted, another high turnover rate team, another inefficient free throw team. They allow opponents to get to the rim way too much. They play out of the pick and roll a fair amount. They don't really let opponents shoot threes. Good rebounding, but that can also depend on the bodies on the floor. But their big problem is that their shot quality itself can be very limited by how many mid-range shots they take, the 50th highest mid-range frequency in the nation for the Golden Griffins. So I'm definitely looking for that to sort of bite teams in this go time. I don't know if they're going to have the best players on the court even to sort of lean on. It's definitely going to be a favor, in my opinion, here to Mount St. Mary's, who is probably also a little closer to the site.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like Mount St. Mary's, an issue for them this season has been turning the ball over. The only team to turn it over more than Mount St. Mary's is Siena, but Canisius doesn't force them. Canisius has a very low forced turnover rate. Maybe can't take advantage of that, and I think you really have to, make sure if Utenjal's out for Canisius with all of their other absences, it's tough to see Canisius being able to win here. I would make Mount St. Mary's the favorite, and if you get a cheap enough price, maybe they are worth a look. Let's move on to the 7-10 game, Iona Manhattan. I got to be honest, Justin, I'm shocked that Iona is actually the 7 seed here. I mean, we knew, I assumed that Iona would dip a little bit in the wake of losing Rick Pitino, bringing in Tobin Anderson, some turnover, but I think they were the favorites or one of the favorites to win this league coming into the season. So seeing them at 7 is somewhat, is kind of amazing to me. With that being said, I don't know how, the only explanation for them getting boat raced by Manhattan a couple weeks ago would be that they were in kind of maybe give up mode toward the end of the season. They knew that those last kind of couple games weren't very, going to be important. They were going to have to win the tournament to go anywhere this year. It seems to me like the numbers are going to favor Iona in this one. And I would be I'd be downright shocked if Manhattan gets by them. Whether they win by margin or not, it will be yet to be determined. But if Iona shows up here, it's hard to not see them winning this game.
Yeah, well, Iona was what? They were behind. They needed the 5-4 at least to get that by. So they were 2 games behind. St. Peter's. There's a 3-way tie at 12 wins in the conference here in the MAAC between St. Peter's, Marist, and Ryder. Quinnipiac with 15 wins, Fairfield with 14. Yeah, Iona sitting down there with 10 behind Niagara, who has 11. Right, so that next little party, it's pretty linear. Everyone sort of has a similar amount of wins. But let me tell you right now, Iona sits at the top of the shot quality standings for this conference. They are rated in the top 200, just barely, but the only team in the MAAC that we have rated above there. They're 15-16 record, expected by shot quality to be 17-14. Comes in as one of the bigger numbers in terms of our record luck, 7.5, 7.75% difference in terms of their win percent and shot quality win percent. I do think this is probably where that Tobin Heath hire comes out to play. You brought in the coach, right? You're in the tournament. You would have needed like two. You didn't get the wins you needed essentially against the teams that are in 3rd through 5th to be in competition with them and get the better seed and maybe be 3 or 5. They're not. The quality in this is not really dictated by seedings, right? So. Look, Iona's defense, very stout, very solid 3-point shooters. They take care of the ball and they steal the ball they just great guard play. Like that's probably going to be a major factor here in the MAAC because, like you said, very turnover-prone league. You're going to get a lot of teams that are going to be a little loose. If Iona can come in and get those wins against their conference rivals, that's a big deal. And I'm taking a look at the unexpected results for Iona this season, and those are games in which shot quality projected them to win, or expected them, not projected, because that's like a predetermining, but actually after the fact, analyzing every shot taken in the game, expecting Iona to win. In the Quinnipiac game at home, which they lost by 20, there was expected to be a much closer game, really like a hairpin difference, expected to win by 0.5. So just takeaway is a lot closer. This obviously every calculation, every model, nothing's perfect. You got to give it a little bit of leeway, but still should have been closer. St. Peter's loss at home should have been a big win. They didn't shoot very well. Canisius loss on the road, expected to be a win. A couple given back, of course, a Fairfield win and Niagara win in February, both expected to be very tight losses, though. So they just came out a little lucky there. I just do think this is the type of team you want to back. They both losses to St. Peter's and the loss to Niagara at home. So their record could look a lot different if you went by shot quality. So that's really an opportunity to get in. And this is definitely going to be one of my selections as a future ticket here, probably along with some of the ones towards the back. It's very open, but you're going to probably get good odds on Iona because they do have that extra game just in principle. So, this is a good spot to take them. I don't think they're going to have too much trouble really dispatching Manhattan. It's essentially a buy in terms of a future. So I'm not there. They might give them a little trouble. Yeah. Manhattan's been playing up, but Iona comes in and really plays hard and is coached right by the guy that they brought in, who made this noise, who did the unthinkable at FDU. Now, he should be able to coach his way through this, right? If you can beat Purdue, you should be able to
right.
beat Manhattan and get into Fairfield, and at least get into that Fairfield game. So I do think the Iona odds there. I think I would be looking at Iona.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly fall into the odd range I think you would want to look at if you're making a future bet in this tournament. We'll get into why I think that the sort of the top teams are a little bit short there. So Iona certainly kind of fits in that 8-1, 7-8-1 range. And as far as this, matchup, just to wrap this one up, Manhattan, worst 3-point shooting defense in this league. Iona has been a fringe top 300 3-point shooting team in the country all year. Iona's been awful rebounding the ball, but Manhattan's not a very good rebounding team either. It does feel like a really good matchup here for the Gales. And I kind of agree. If I'm looking at futures, I kind of already have Iona penciled in. I don't see any way Manhattan actually pulls the outright upset in this game. Sadly, Justin, another one that I don't think is pulling an outright upset is the Siena Saints. Although you got to look at the personnel here because they've really like been without like maybe their whole. I mean, the last couple of weeks they barely had their starters playing. I saw Michael Ellie finally got out there the last game. Sean Gordon hasn't played at all. Zach Tekken hasn't played at all. It's not to make an excuse for them. This has been one of the worst teams in college basketball all season long. But I would keep an eye if you're going to bet this 6-11 matchup on Tuesday night. I would absolutely keep an eye on the personnel for Siena because, like Justin said, the predictive metrics are there in terms of like, Siena against the number being some value. But the other thing that's going to be huge, like you put a guy like Sean Gordon on the floor here, he's going to tilt the expected success of Siena significantly. He's been their best player, but he's also been one of the better players in the league when he's on the floor this year. Now, on the other side of the ball, Greg Paulus, as good of a coach as you're going to find in this league, I really think this Niagara team, they continue to just overachieve. Paulus does this every year. He loses a guy like Noah Thomason. He loses his best player basically every year. And then it just doesn't matter. He exceeds expectations. He's done it once again this year. No one gave Niagara a chance without Thomason and the roster that they had. And sure enough, there he is finishing sixth, right up there in a lot of the metrics. Like it's just been a solid team. And if you want to talk about a coach being able to influence a team in a positive direction, Paulus is the type of guy that you probably want on your side in terms of like coming up with quick game plans, needing to turn around and play the next day. So interesting matchup. I'm assuming the number is going to be way too big to take Niagara in this game against the spread. So it'd probably be Siena or pass. But what do you think, Justin? What's your outlook on Niagara for the full tournament? And do you have anything to add to the Niagara-Siena matchup on Tuesday night?
Love my Purple Eagles. I do think they get it done on the money line. I do think, this is, again, good coaches, interesting conference. Siena is going to be live to cover, without a doubt. They have looked like competent when they do have their players on the floor. It's tough. It's tough when you're not healthy, and we've seen it in a couple scenarios this year. The afterthoughts, to the media, to the public, to the consumers, to the sharps, to the casuals, whoever you are, the afterthoughts, the Sienas, the Jacksonvilles, the people who barely get in, make some noise. They can do it. I wouldn't go as far to say as they're going to like upset them, but I would not be shocked to see a game that they still take their very best swing at, like maybe way more so than anything we saw in the regular season, because it was, in effect, a lost season, and everyone still gets to take that swing, and it's a hard excuse me, it's a hard game. Definitely, Niagara has been great. You don't get to that type of road record in terms of covering, beating the number, just winning games on the road in this conference is super difficult. So a big hat tip to the Purple Eagles. It's definitely been really impressive. It comes from really smart play. They don't allow opponents to take threes. Top 10 in the nation, not just I was in the MAAC, barely anything, but 7th in the nation. 27.7% of possessions are 3 points attempted against. That's really low. They go at the rim a lot, so a top 10 rate at going at the rim. So that's how you develop good basketball, right? You attack the rim, you make sure the defense has to stay true, stay home. You spread the floor, you get open shots. You're able to create action off of that rim lane driving presence. Then they play really good defense against shots at the rim. Their problems are they don't really get a lot of offensive rebounds. They don't take a lot of threes themselves. So there's a little bit to be desired, but in terms of the formula of what's working, it's going at the hoop. It's playing good defense. It's chasing opponents off the line and, beating them at their game. So I do think Niagara has some potential here to really make a bit of a run. They're one of my favorite teams. We'll get to futures conversation in a second, but I'm not going to be taking anyone at the top. So yeah, give me like some Niagara. I'll probably be fading Quinnipiac and probably Fairfield Rider. That type of gang. Sorry, I know you're in the Fairfield shirt, but.
No, that's okay. I just threw the Fairfield shirt on. I do think Fairfield is probably the best team in this league, and we'll get to that in a second. But their odds really aren't playable. They're certainly beatable. And then you talk about a team like Niagara that's going to maybe come out of that sort of pod or whatever, if you will, like 17, 18 to 1. You're giving me. I still think Paulus is the best coach in this league. So if you're going to give me the best coach in the MAAC at 17-1. I think you have to take it. As far as this matchup with Siena is concerned, you got to know if Sean Durr-Gordon's going to play. Siena, one of their 4 wins was over Niagara in a game where Durr-Gordon had 36 points and 12 boards. It was his best game of the season. He did not play in the second meeting with Niagara. Can he get them over the hump for an outright win? Probably not, but I certainly think Siena could cover a pretty big number there if he is available. The problem is he hasn't played in a little while. I know it's been an upper body injury, and then you have to just think of is Siena going to come in and give this the max effort, or are they just going to go take their L and go home, because that's kind of been the season the way it's been. But just food for thought there in that final matchup on Tuesday. We are now to Wednesday. This will be the quarterfinal round. So in this bracket, the top 3 seeds get a double bye. The 4 and the 5 don't have to play on Tuesday. I'm sorry. The top 5 seeds get a bye till Wednesday. And then Ryder and St. Peter's, the matchup is already set. Sorry, I misspoke there. But so Ryder St. Peter's, it's the 4-5 game. It'll be one of the earlier quarterfinals, I believe, on Wednesday. Interestingly enough, as far as I know KenPom numbers are baked into the market a lot of times, but I do think it's interesting when there's outliers, in his metrics. And the only 2 teams that rate in the top 100 in anything from the MAAC is St. Peter's and Marist, and it's both on the defensive end. So St. Peter's has been terrific defensively this year. The offense, however, has been outside the top 300 nationally for most of the season. Now, you have to weigh Corey Washington's injury into that. He was out for a period of time. He's by far their best offensive player. He is now back. But, Ryder's an interesting team, Justin, because they were kind of the team I thought might win this league coming into this season. I felt like they had the most upside. And I still feel like from a future standpoint coming into the conference tournament, the upside is still probably there with this Ryder team in their ability to score and rebound. They do some of the things that a lot of these other MAAC schools don't do well. It's just they've had a hard time putting games together, not letting leads slip away, so on and so forth. So, you mentioned Iona at 8-1. I think Niagara at a very long price is worth a look. The other one I would throw in there as reasonable odds would be Ryder at 7-1, but they're going to have to get by St. Peter's. Do you think they get by St. Peter's? Yeah. This seems like it's going to be a pretty good game.
This is probably, I wouldn't be shocked if the winner of this game ends up making a run at that final. Maybe even winning. This is tough because Ryder started out so bad. I remember, talking to another MAAC head and Sam Fetterman being like, wow, Ryder really starting the season couldn't be shooting much worse. And it's the truth. But now they're actually overperforming a little bit, especially in the conference. And that's really tough to see in terms of getting value on them. We have a nice conference-only split in terms of looking at our shot quality regression data. Ryder's sitting at 39% from 3 in conference and 32% expected. So it's that's again, those KenPom efficiency numbers, love them. Use KenPom every day because you need to understand what actually happened. And KenPom is the best at understanding what actually happened. Shot quality is what would happen if you continue to do it over and over again. But you understand it a little bit differently. The lucky shots maybe aren't as factored into the future performance prediction. It's a little bit more realistic of okay, bad shots were falling. You're getting credit for bad shots instead of the falling. And there's efficiency metrics care about what fell and expect that over time, good shots will fall and bad shots won't, which is fair. And it does. Really long samples, sure. But short samples, trying to identify things that are legitimate or not in the minute in terms to understand performance for a tournament based on what you've seen in the last 2 weeks. Ryder has covered 7 straight spreads, strung together 7 straight wins. So it's been very impressive. And this was after sort of struggling a little bit, another 3 wins after a 3-win loss streak there, a couple on the road, lost to Iona by 1, lost to Fairfield kind of big, lost to Marist at home big, and then have just rattled off win after win. So that's awesome. And if you want to trust it, I understand. They've looked great. They've sort of leveled up here. But do you really, want to buy in at the peak. If you're getting, a price that's just representative of this end of the season, where maybe some of these teams sort of are already looking forward towards the conference tournament and aren't, jockeying for the number one position in terms of how they're playing here. It's definitely going to be a little tough for me to get myself to bet on Ryder. I just don't think the value is 100% there for me, just based on some of the hot shooting they've had in the conference play. And again, they've been kind of a little unlucky on defense too. So it's not like it doesn't go the other way, but it's hard for me to back a team that's been shooting 40% in conference play almost, when SQ is sitting here saying, 32, 33% is probably a little bit more realistic. When you get into that do or die game, I think things tend to go a little bit closer towards what's expected in terms of, instead of what has happened in the past. I don't really like using what has happened in the past very much.
Yeah, I think the best conclusion I can make from this side of the bracket. We'll stay here and we'll finish. We'll move on to Quinnipiac, but so Ryder won both regular season meetings with St. Peter's. Important to note that Washington left the first meeting, only played about 15 minutes. So you've got a couple things working against Ryder. One, the potential regression that you've referenced. Two, are they going to beat St. Peter's 3 times? That's always difficult. I would say you've got 4 potential opponents for Quinnipiac, and I think the point that we're going to probably both agree on most is that I'm nowhere near Quinnipiac plus 380 in this conference tournament. I actually think there's 4 other teams that I think might win this other than top seeded Quinnipiac. I wouldn't be surprised if Mount St. Mary's gave them a game in the 1-8 game, assuming they get by Canisius. And, I think Ryder, if they can get through, see, this is where it gets tricky, because if Ryder can get through St. Peter's, they seem to match up really good with Quinnipiac. They beat them by 10 a couple weeks ago. And in the first meeting, it was very odd. Ryder had a 15-point lead. They choked it away, and then their coach burned all their timeouts by the 7-minute mark of the second half. So Quinnipiac tipped the cap there to Pecora. He literally didn't call a timeout, was just keep playing the final 3 minutes of the game, and was able to completely wear down Ryder and steal a win by 4. But again, I guess for me, Justin, I'll kick it back to you. I'm going to be in full fade mode on Quinnipiac. I don't think they're the best team in this league. I think they were quite fortunate to get to the top spot. So it's really just, deciding which matchup is the best one to go at them against. But I could see almost all of those teams giving Quinnipiac a hard time.
Yeah, I think Quinnipiac has a real difficult time closing, Adam, is sort of been something I've noticed about them throughout the season. Not exactly the most reliable team. They can go up big, and they will let their opponent, creep back into a game, chip away. All of a sudden, small 6-point run, and it's a 2-point game. And you were like, wait, I thought Quinnipiac was just up 14. That's Quinnipiac. I do really think you want to look essentially everywhere else. You don't want to take a 3-2 type shot on this tournament. There's going to be chaos. It's going to be crazy. All these teams are viable to over or underperform on any single night. And so what does that add value to? The biggest prices on the board. And it removes value from the shortest prices on the board. So I will be looking, if I don't even know what the numbers are on Siena and Manhattan, but you could, it's not out of the picture. So I would look to the bottom of this one. I would not look to the top. I think you want to avoid Quinnipiac. I think, even Fairfield, who's looked like, people have called him the best offense in the MAAC. And no, go away from that. It might very well be. Again, I'm not saying that, if you were asking me who my Jerome pick was and who I think wins the tournament in terms of just accuracy, it's really tough. It's really tough. But it is probably, I would probably say Fairfield, because in most iterations they do in the highest percent. But that's still not enough to justify the price. The price is very justified on Iona. The price is very justified on Niagara. The price is justified, maybe even, as far as Mount St. Mary's, who give a 1-seed trouble that maybe shouldn't be priced like a true 1-seed in a conference that had, notorious wild results and soft teams and maybe some unlucky performances against them. If you didn't, crush Siena this season, how did that look against your tournament standings. I mean, I don't know. They didn't exactly get too many wins, but the teams they beat, they got to win on Niagara, who is a little lower. They got to win on Manhattan. That's fair. That's kind of it. And they beat Ryder. So a couple of those teams maybe getting a little bit of an extra like push down, right? If you lose to like that soft team, your standings are going to be different than everyone who just crushed them. It's kind of how it works in a lot of leagues. If you don't beat up on the bad teams, your standings aren't going to be there. And does that necessarily mean you're not the best team if you don't beat the bad teams? And Manhattan, another one, got wins on Iona, got wins on Niagara, and got a win on Mount St. Mary's. So those are three teams that suffered a loss to maybe a not super serious contender that now is in the standings down a peg because of it. So interesting ways to look at these conferences, try to find value, try to really verify the records, right? Is what you're seeing, is the seedings, is what you've seen in these games true to what's happened? I mean, you go even a step further. When Manhattan beat Mount St. Mary's, it was a distinct shot quality loss by 13 points. So, shot quality is not going to penalize Mount St. Mary's. They're actually going to give them that win in terms of our understanding. So, value on those teams that maybe took some ugly losses. Tournament time doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think we'll keep on Fairfield for a second because two things can be true at once, and you kind of brought both of them up. One, the correct team is favored here. Fairfield, in my estimation, is the best team in the MAAC. They deserve to be the favorite over Quinnipiac in the full season, or I'm sorry, the full tournament picture. I think like 3-1. But the other thing that I think is true is it's crazy to back them at 3-1 because there's enough reason to see them losing a game at some point. Like no one's gonna. I'm not going to argue with anyone that tells me like Bryson Godin's the best player in this conference. Fairfield's probably got the most upside. Like, Ken Pom has him rated 167. It's the highest rating in the league. Certainly would probably be the best representative from this conference in the NCAA tournament. But then you've got things like, defensive efficiency, they're ninth. Like that's really bad in this league to be, that's glaring in my opinion to be down there, that far down, in the defensive efficiency rating. Now, the other thing you have to look at with Fairfield is they had big time injuries earlier in the year. They had guys missing time. So, I do think Fairfield's the best team if we're just talking about like who's the best team in this league, but you're talking about having to play Iona in the quarterfinal and then potentially having to either game plan against Greg Paulus in the semi, which is tough, or play the next team and the final team we'll talk about, the Marist Red Foxes, who have the highest defensive rating in the conference, meaning like, those two outliers I talked about. The highest rating of any team in KenPom, offense or defense, is Marist, who's 84th in defensive efficiency. John Dunn always has this team playing incredible defense, and they're going to be, they're the type of team where they don't score enough to make me want to get involved with them at plus 550 by any means, but they are going to be a very difficult out for whoever has to play against them. In fact, they handed Fairfield their only loss of this last run where Fairfield's won 5 of 6. That one loss was to Marist, and it was because Marist was able to defend that sort of high powered offense of Fairfield. But again, the drawbacks for Marist, and we're kind of building the conversation. There's flaws in these top teams. They're going to get destroyed on the glass in most scenarios, and they don't shoot it particularly well. So is Marist a team? How do you have them valued, Justin? Are you going to look to play on them because of the the potential for them to kind of wipe someone out defensively, or do they not have enough offense to make it multiple rounds in this tournament?
I think they lack the offense to warrant the price. They could do it.
For
People
sure.
will fall into the defensive trap if they really develop those types of looks. But 550 there's a little short for me at the top. I definitely want that middle lower batch in terms of what I want for the price. I do think Marist could win that first game, but nothing's really given in this conference. I don't think that you can look at that defense and say, okay, well, it's just going to translate. I worry a lot about the offense. I've lost a few Marist bets. I'll tell you that much. So, they have been a lot better here in the second half, I'd say. Their losses have been mostly on the road, right? The home losses to Mount St. Mary's and Quinnipiac were both some disappointing games for sure. Lost at home to Lehigh, but other than that, went to New Hampshire, Notre Dame in the non-con, lost at Fairfield, Mount St. Mary's, Niagara, and then St. Peter's. So yeah, when they have sort of like a little bit of an up and down there a little bit, and the road wins were really just what Manhattan, Ryder, Canisius, that's it, Dartmouth and Iona. So Iona's a big one early season though, and that early season weird game, 2 games at the MAAC is so funny now sitting here in March,
Yeah.
trying to evaluate things, but. Yeah, Marist is a team I'm a little worried about in the new venue, not the new venue, but like the non-home venue. I've always sort of seen them as
Sure.
a very solid home program. I don't know how they'll fare, and especially when you're talking about an offense being weak, that can lead to some early problems. I could see them being the type of team that like struggles out of the gate, and then their defense locks in like the second half, and they get like a big comeback. So yeah, maybe looking to get on Marist live if they're just missing some shots and playing decent defense. I think that could be a really interesting opportunity. Maybe a first half team total under for Marist coming out slow. Unders in general for this team, probably the way to go.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, that definitely was an under venue. At least the first couple of years of that
Yeah.
MAAC tournament there at Boardwalk Hall was a venue that really played to the under. We'll have to see if that continues this season. So I guess the way I'm looking at this from a bigger picture, if we're talking about now we've gone through the bracket and now we're kind of talking about trying to find future value, and you can tweak this where you want. I'll have we'll throw the futures odds back up on the screen here. But the way I'm looking at it is I'd almost be willing to throw out Canisius, Manhattan, Siena, just because I don't know if I could see Siena or Manhattan winning this thing, maybe winning a game, but certainly not the tournament. And Canisius, I just don't think they have the guys at this point. They're far too
Yeah.
depleted, in my opinion, to win multiple games, in multiple days. At the top, I'm pretty much willing to throw out Quinnipiac, Fairfield, Marist, and St. Peter's because I just don't think you can take 5-1 or worse with how inconsistent pretty much everyone is in this conference, which leaves Ryder at 7-1, Niagara at 17-1, Iona at 8-1, and Mount St. Mary's at 13-1. I think those are the 4 plays, and or pick one of those 4. I'll be really surprised if we get to a MAAC final this year and one of those 4 teams isn't in it. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think one of those 4 is going to be there.
I tend to agree. I would probably even go further and leave Ryder at home, personally.
Okay.
And so yeah, my 3-year will likely be, depending on prices I get. Of course, haven't actually played anything on this yet. New York, a little bit difficult. Might have to go take a drive over to New Jersey to get down on some of them. But yeah, Niagara, Iona. I like the coaching aspect with Iona. I think this has sort of been the sights set. First year for a new coach coming out of a big win in March, just settling in with his guys, getting things going, understanding. All right, first regular season, probably the least consequential one, but because this tournament does let everybody have a swing. So now you get Iona, who has showed fearsomeness in terms of what they look like when they play great. And if their guys can get up for these games, Coach Tobin Heath, I like it. I saw him hanging out at Madison Square Garden last year during the games. I mean, it's after he was eliminated, he was at Madison Square Garden. I think literally the next day, maybe like watching FAU. So that was pretty cool. I'm a big fan. I think he does a good job. I think he will do a good job in this tournament. I think also then, yeah, you just want those nice, above 10-1 swings on anyone here. Mount St. Mary's and Niagara happen to be those 2. I get it, going through maybe some tougher seeds, but anything's kind of possible there. I like it more than I like the money line rollover. I think, once there's always that like scenario where you win that big game that is priced into this line, and then, all of a sudden you get into that love because you just beat Quinnipiac, and the money line price is shorter the next time you're out to play the semifinal. So yeah, no, I think this, or the final, whatever it is. So yeah, I think those are the spots. Maybe if you really like what Ryder's done and you have that angle, I understand. But yeah, St. Peter's and Marist, I don't think defense is winning this. I think you're going to need to score. Everybody here struggles to score. And so I think scoring will be the name of the game. And I do like that how Niagara game plans the ball to the bucket. If you ask, that's probably my favorite play. I think the biggest likelihood is I take Niagara and Iona as my two shots in this conference.
Yeah, I mean Niagara for the value for the price 17-1, but I like you talked about like this venue being tough sometimes. Well, Niagara free throw rate number one in the conference, and getting those points at a line in a venue where jump shooting has historically been difficult, could be a nice hidden edge as well. I'll argue I'll die on that hill. Greg Paulus is the best coach right now in this conference. Justin Perry, shot quality, check him out. Thank you so much for joining our preview. Guys, if you haven't seen the shot quality software, just go give it a look. It's phenomenal. And thanks for joining. We really appreciate it. Like and subscribe to the Wager Talk YouTube channel, and we'll keep bringing you these free previews. Follow Justin at Justin Perry 8 on Twitter. Follow me at Top Flight SI, and we will see you guys next time.